The views expressed on the Nova Society are those of the panelists and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Phoenix Research Institute or any institution which any panel member is associated. Reproduction or dissemination, other than for the purpose of education or information without the express written permission of the Phoenix Research Institute or Nova Society Media, is strictly prohibited.
Welcome to the Nova Society. I'm your host, Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, and I'm here with the panel, Dr. Scott Gershwer and Dr. Mark Bound. Today, the panel will be answering listener emails, and we have our question from Leo lives in Chicago, Illinois, and Leo asks, so now President-elect Trump says that prices might be going up and he has no control over the cost of things here. How do you think he will deflect the blame, and will that deflection be successful?
You have a loaded question.
Yeah, yeah, really. Yeah.
So can I
yeah, go ahead.
Start?
Yeah, sure. Yes, please.
Because I think I've mentioned this before, but I wanted to bring it up again because I was listening to Sirius Radio during the Republican National Convention. Okay, so this is what, July? And Congressman Jody Arrington, I think his name is, from Texas, was asked a question by the host of the show about, did Congress know that the trade war Trump started with China was going to lead to inflation? If so, why did they do it? And the congressman didn't say, oh no, the inflation is all due to Biden. He said, yeah, we knew it. He said, we felt that the trade practices by China were worth going after. And even though the era of cheap Chinese goods that has benefited this country for years is over, right? And if you go to a dollar store, I think it's now $1.27 store, or something along those lines. And if you go to Walmart and you get everything there is made in China, the prices are up over there. And that was the main reason that there was inflation in 2021. The other, of course, was that supply chains snarled up all over the world. And that's why we're not the only country that had inflation, right? Even though we're the only country that had Joe Biden's American Rescue Plan, other countries suffered from inflation that didn't have a rescue plan. And that kind of undermines the argument that it was the rescue plan that created the inflation, right? Pumping more money into the economy was inflationary, which it generally is. But if we hadn't done it, we'd be in the same situation that Germany, France, and other countries are in. And we're seeing all over the world this kind of political upheaval that we had in, I guess, a relatively modest way here in the States, but they're having in Germany and France, and a little bit more disruptive Canada, maybe, South Korea. And so we're headed for another period of high inflation. We're likely to have a recession. There will be economic turmoil. I think that you need to go back and read the book Shock Doctrine by Naomi Klein to see what the end game of all this is, because when everybody else is panicking, the few people who can afford to live through it are not going to be panicking, and they're going to be taking advantage of it. So you might also want to watch in this holiday season the Christmas classic, It's a Wonderful Life, and think, hey, the United States is about to turn into Pottersville, and that's a good thing. Like we're actually turning into Pottersville. Mr. Potter, we voted for Mr. Potter. And in this new version of that movie, Mr. Potter is the good guy that everybody wanted to elect. Apparently because there were drag shows or people were too woke or whatever it is. There were transgender athletes in high school. And because of that, we've decided that we want to become Pottersville. Where we're headed is not good. I just think that inflation, recession, a lot of homeless people, bad stuff happening on the streets, the Insurrection Act, a police state, gathering people up, asking people to see their papers like they do in the old World War II movies where the Gestapo is running around. I think all that's coming. The American people voted for that.
Yes, you did. You voted for it, and here's your prize. And that's really what it comes down to. Will he attempt to deflect this? Oh, heck yes. How will he attempt to do it? Any possible way he can think of. He could say it's space aliens. I mean, and his cult would believe it. Okay, fine. Will it be successful? Well, it'll be successful for the people that have drank the Kool-Aid. It probably won't be successful for the rest of us, but as Scott says, those who do not panic during this, and there is a reason to be concerned, but then again, you were told there was a reason to be concerned before you elected, and you elected anyway. So it's time to take your medicine, U.S. citizens. I mean, it's unfortunate because things were going really well, and now you've basically taken everything, all of the advancements that you've made, all of the fact that, the rest of the world looks at us with envy in our economy, and now they're looking and saying, boy, those Americans are dumb. I mean, what are they doing? And, well, that's where we sit.
Yeah, I mean, Trump will deflect. And I notice how your question, Leo, is framed not to ask what if Trump will deflect, but in a way that you understand that Trump will definitely deflect. And yes, he most certainly will. There's no question about that. All one has to do is look at all his prior communications and the fact that he's doesn't hold himself responsible for anything and never has, and has always found somebody else to blame. That's his personality, apparently. And it'll be the enemy within. It will be the radical left. It will be space aliens, whatever. There will be a successive number of scapegoats. And Trump has already signaled that the enemy within, beginning with the media, are more dangerous than enemies that America faces without, external enemies, America's traditional antagonists from outside the country, that the enemy within is much more dangerous. So people are primed to, and as we were talking during our recording time last week, where Mark pointed out that his larger concern between what the government does and what our fellow Americans do. He's more concerned about what our fellow Americans do, and while I'm certainly concerned about what the government does and have said so on any number of occasions, I agree with Mark that the actions our fellow Americans take are the more alarming. However, the actions our fellow Americans take have been informed and inflamed by what the leadership of the American government is doing and saying, and permitting, and also demonstrating. I can see where the Proud Boys would stand back and stand by, and so on and so forth, plus the large amount of guns that are in the possession of American citizens, that individuals will be encouraged to help address the issues of the enemy within. And that also I find highly alarming. I can see that is quite possible in the future, as we've seen in Nazi Germany and in Stalin, in the Soviet Union, and I would assume in Mussolini's Italy. I'm not that familiar with Mussolini, but certainly in Germany and under Hitler, and in the Soviet Union under Stalin. So we have that to look forward to. And that's sarcasm. Alrighty. So thank you so much for your question, and we will see you again on the Nova Society.
We'd like to thank our sponsor for this episode, the Journal of Interdisciplinary Conflict Science. The JCIS is an open journal for upcoming scholars. The JCIS is currently accepting article submissions on an ongoing basis. The JCIS is a publication of Nova Works, a scholarly depository at Nova Southeastern University. A link to the journal is in our description. And that's all the time we have for today's episode. The Nova Society is a production of Nova Society Media, a division of the Phoenix Research Institute. We'd like to thank our production partners, Buzzsprout, who hosts the Nova Society, Audacity, our editing partners, Apple iTunes, the largest source of podcasts and music on the internet, Spotify, the most popular platform for the Nova Society, and iHeartRadio, your source for all things music and podcasting. The Nova Society is available on all of these and other quality platforms listed in our description. We'd like to thank all of our listeners. Without you and your support, the Nova Society would not be possible. If you have a question or comment, we can be reached at nova.society.podcast@gmail.com. So for Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, Dr. Priscilla Hobbs, Dr. Scott Gershwer, and for all of us here at the Nova Society, I'm Dr. Mark Bound. Remember, the true power in society is knowledge. Thanks for listening, and we hope to see you again next time.